The cooling system chose the worst possible moment to die. David Reed watched the temperature gauges climb into the red zone while his cargo hauler shuddered through the upper atmosphere of an unmapped moon. He had maybe 10 minutes before the whole ship turned into an expensive coffin drifting through space. The landing was rough. Metal screamed against rock as the hauler scraped across a plateau of dark stone. David killed the engines and sat in silence, listening to the hull pop and groan as it cooled. Outside his viewport, the landscape looked like something from a fever dream. Purple crystals jutted from the ground at odd angles, catching the light of a distant sun and scattering it in rainbow patterns across the rocks. He ran diagnostics on the cooling system. The readout made him swear: 3 blown relays and a cracked coolant line. The repair drones could handle it, but they would need at least 6 hours. 6 hours on a moon that probably had never seen human footprints. David unsealed his emergency kit and checked his oxygen reserves. Enough for a walk. Sitting in the ship would drive him crazy anyway. The air outside tasted metallic, not poisonous according to his scanner, just different. David picked his way between the crystal formations, drawn by a cave entrance about 200 meters from his landing site. The crystals grew thicker here, forming a natural archway that pulsed with inner light. Something about the pattern reminded him of a heartbeat. Inside the cave, the light intensified. David had to squint as he moved deeper. The crystals here were the size of trees, their facets reflecting his helmet lamp back at him 1,000 times. He was about to turn back when he heard it. A sound like wind chimes mixed with a baby crying. Faint, almost swallowed by the crystal echoes, but definitely there. He found the creature under a collapsed section of crystal. The rockfall must have happened recently because dust still hung in the air. At first, David thought it was some kind of lizard. Then he saw the wings. They were crumpled and torn, one membrane hanging by threads of tissue. The creature was small, no bigger than a house cat. Its scales caught the light like oil on water, shifting between silver and gray with each breath. The breathing worried him most: too shallow, too slow. David had done a tour as a field medic before he started hauling freight. He recognized the signs of shock and blood loss. Whatever this thing was, it was dying. His hands moved before his brain caught up. He cleared the rocks away carefully, checking for injuries as he worked. Broken ribs on the left side, the torn wing, possible internal bleeding. David pulled out his emergency medical kit and stared at the contents. Everything in there was designed for humans. He had no idea if any of it would work on an alien reptile. But doing nothing guaranteed death. David crushed a painkiller tablet and mixed it with water, then used a dropper to get the mixture past the creature's teeth. He splinted the ribs using bandage strips and sealed the worst of the wing tears with medical adhesive. The whole time, the creature never opened its eyes. Its breathing stayed shallow and weak. David wrapped it in a thermal blanket from his emergency supplies and carried it back to the ship. The repair drones were already at work on the cooling system, their welding torches throwing blue sparks across the hull. He set up a makeshift nest in the cargo bay using more thermal blankets and a heating pad designed for warming ration packs. The creature fit in the center like an egg in a nest. For the next 3 hours, David sat beside the nest and monitored vital signs with his medical scanner. The readouts made no sense. Body temperature too high for Earth reptiles but stable. Heart rate irregular but steady. Blood chemistry completely alien. He had no baseline to compare anything against. All he could do was watch and hope. Night fell on the moon. The crystals outside began to glow brighter, as if storing sunlight and releasing it slowly. David mixed more nutrient paste with water and tried to get the creature to swallow. Most of it dribbled out, but some went down. Small victory. He marked it in his log as Hour 4, patient still critical but stable. The repair drones finished their work as the moon sun rose again. David ran system checks twice to be sure. Everything green. He could leave any time. He looked at the creature in its nest, still breathing, still unconscious, still alive against all odds. The decision made itself. David sealed the cargo bay for atmospheric control and programmed a course back to Waypoint 7, the closest human station. 6 days of travel time. He gave the creature maybe 3 days to live. He named the moon Hope's End in his log. It seemed appropriate. The first day of travel passed in tense silence. David checked the cargo bay every hour. The creature's breathing improved slightly. He managed to get more nutrients down its throat. The torn wing started showing signs of healing, the edges of the membrane drawing together where the adhesive held. On the second day, the creature moved for the first time. Just a twitch of its tail, but enough to spike David's heart rate. He increased the heating pad temperature and added more nutrient paste to the feeding schedule. The creature's scales seemed brighter, the colors more defined. By the third day, David started believing it might actually survive. The breathing was stronger. The wounds were closing. He still had not seen its eyes open, but sometimes the creature would shift position in the nest, tucking its head under one wing like a bird. On the fourth day, as the ship entered the final hyperspace jump to Waypoint 7, the creature's eyes opened for the first time. They were the color of molten gold with vertical pupils like a cat. But what froze David in place was the intelligence behind those eyes. This was not an animal looking at him. This was a person. Young, confused, in pain, but absolutely aware. The creature held his gaze for a long moment. Then it made a sound, soft and questioning, that sounded almost like a word. David knelt beside the nest and carefully extended his hand. The creature sniffed his fingers, then pressed its head against his palm. In that moment, everything changed. 3 months changed everything. David's quarters on Waypoint 7 transformed from a basic sleeping space into something that resembled a cross between a workshop and a zoo. The creature he had started calling Ash, after her silver-gray scales, grew at an alarming rate. She was now the size of a large dog and showed no signs of stopping. Ash had personality. She liked warm spaces and hated loud noises. She would curl up on David's bunk when he worked at his desk, watching him with those golden eyes. Sometimes she would chirp at him, a sound like crystals clicking together. David swore she was trying to talk. Dr. Yuki Tanaka visited every week to run tests. Yuki was the station's only xenobiologist, a thin woman with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She had examined Ash 6 times now, and each visit left her more confused than the last. "This doesn't make sense," Yuki said during her 7th visit. She held up a data tablet showing Ash's cellular scans. "Her cells contain exotic matter. Do you know what that means?" David shook his head. He was a freight pilot, not a scientist. "It means her biology operates on principles we barely understand. This exotic matter, it only exists in the oldest parts of the universe. Her species could be millions of years old." Yuki set down the tablet and looked at Ash, who was currently trying to figure out how David's coffee maker worked. "And she's smart. Really smart. I ran cognitive tests last week. She scored higher than most Earth primates." Ash succeeded in turning on the coffee maker. She jumped back as it hissed and gurgled, then crept forward again to watch the dark liquid drip into the pot. David could not help but smile. "She's learning faster every day," he said. "Yesterday I showed her how to open the door panel. She's been letting herself in and out ever since." "That's what worries me." Yuki pulled up another file. "I sent her DNA structure to the xenobiology database. No matches, not even close matches. Whatever species Ash belongs to, they've never made contact with humans before, or if they did, they didn't leave any records." David felt a chill run down his spine. "You think her people are still out there?" "I think something that advanced doesn't just disappear, and if they come looking for her—" Yuki did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Over the next weeks, David noticed changes in Ash beyond just size. She started mimicking his movements. When he typed on his terminal, she would tap her claws on the desk in the same rhythm. When he exercised in the morning, she would stretch and move alongside him. It went beyond animal behavior. She was studying him. The station residents had mixed reactions to Ash. Some found her fascinating. Children would press against David's window to watch her. Others kept their distance, made nervous by her size and the way she moved. Too smooth, too aware, like a predator pretending to be a pet. Reggie Walsh, the station administrator, called David to his office in the 4th month. Reggie was a heavy-set man who had managed Waypoint 7 for 15 years. He looked tired. "We need to talk about your guest," Reggie said without preamble. "I've been getting complaints. People are scared, David. That thing is getting bigger every week." "She's not a thing. Her name is Ash." "Fine, Ash. But she's still an unknown alien species living in residential quarters. We don't know what she eats, what she needs, whether she's dangerous. The safety committee wants her moved to a research facility." David felt anger rise in his chest. "She's not going to some lab where they can cut her apart." "Nobody's cutting anybody apart, but we need to know more about her. What if she gets aggressive? What if she's carrying diseases? You're thinking with your heart, not your head." David stood to leave. "My heart says she's alone and scared and needs someone to care about her. If that's wrong, I don't want to be right." Reggie sighed. "I'm not the enemy here. I'm trying to help. Just think about it." That night David could not sleep. He sat at his desk going through files while Ash dozed on his bunk. She had grown again. Soon she would be too big for his quarters. Reggie was right about that much, but David could not shake the memory of finding her broken and dying under those crystals. She had trusted him then. He would not betray that trust now. Ash woke suddenly. Her head snapped up, eyes wide and fixed on the far wall. She made a sound David had never heard before, a low thrumming that vibrated through the floor. Every scale on her body stood on end. "What's wrong?" David moved to her side. She was staring at nothing, completely focused on empty air. Then Ash did something that stopped David's heart. She extended one claw and began drawing in the condensation on the wall. Lines and curves and symbols that hurt to look at. Mathematical equations far beyond anything David had learned in school. The symbols glowed faintly in the dim light. David took a photo and sent it to Yuki. The reply came back in seconds. "Those are star coordinates. Someone is calling her home." 3 days later, the sensors picked up the energy signature. 3 massive objects appeared at the edge of the system, each one reading the size of a small moon. They did not approach. They just hung there in space, waiting. The station went into full alert. Defense satellites armed themselves. The small fleet of security ships took up defensive positions. Every screen on Waypoint 7 showed the same image. 3 enormous vessels covered in scales that shimmered like ashes, like light on water. The universal translator crackled to life. The same message repeating over and over in a voice that sounded like mountains moving. "Return the child." David looked at Ash. She was pressed against the window, scales glowing, making that thrumming sound again. He realized with complete certainty that his simple act of kindness had just changed everything for humanity. The dragons had come home. The shuttle descended from the largest ship like a drop of liquid mercury. It did not use engines or thrusters. It simply flowed through space as if pulled by invisible strings. Every sensor on Waypoint 7 tracked its approach. Every weapon system locked on. Nobody fired. Fear kept fingers off triggers. David stood in the main docking bay with Ash pressed against his leg. She vibrated with excitement, making that thrumming sound continuously now. Station security surrounded them, weapons drawn but pointed at the floor. Reggie stood beside David, sweating despite the climate control. "Whatever happens, let me do the talking," Reggie whispered. The shuttle touched down without a sound. Its surface rippled and split open like a mouth. 3 figures emerged, and every human in the bay took an involuntary step back. They were massive, 12 feet tall, walking upright on powerful hind legs. Their scales shifted through colors that had no names, patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than David could process. Wings folded against their backs, membranes shot through with veins that glowed like circuit boards. Their heads were angular and elegant, with horns that curved back like crowns. When they moved, reality seemed to bend slightly around them. The lead dragon's eyes fixed on Ash. Those eyes were ancient beyond measure, filled with knowledge that made David feel like an insect. But there was something else there too. Relief, joy, grief. "Little one," the dragon said. Her voice bypassed the translator, speaking directly into David's mind in perfect English. "We thought you were lost forever." Ash made a sound between a cry and a roar. She launched herself across the bay, wings spreading wide. The dragons caught her, wrapping her in wings and tails, making sounds of comfort and welcome. For a moment, David saw them not as terrifying aliens but as a family reunited after impossible loss. Then the lead dragon's attention shifted to David. He felt the weight of that gaze like physical pressure. "I am Keeper Sarah's of the Eternal Flight. You are the one who found her." David's voice came out smaller than he intended. "Yes, on a moon about 6 days from here. She was hurt. I helped." Sarah's moved closer. Each step was silent despite her size. She lowered her head until her eyes were level with David's. He could see galaxies reflected in those eyes. Literal galaxies, spinning and dying and being born again. "You saved a child of the eternal flight. This is a debt beyond measure." She paused. "But I do not understand why. Your species is young, barely past your home world. What did you hope to gain?" The question confused David. "Gain? I didn't want to gain anything. She was hurt and alone. That's reason enough." One of the other dragons made a sound like rocks grinding together. "He lies, Keeper. All young species lie. They want something. Technology, power, knowledge. They always want something." Sarah's did not look away from David. "Is this true, human? Did you keep the child to bargain with us?" Anger burned through David's fear. "I kept her because I couldn't leave her to die. I kept her because she needed someone to care about her. I kept her because it was the right thing to do. If you can't understand that, then I feel sorry for you." Silence fell across the docking bay. Humans and dragons alike stared at David in shock. Nobody spoke to the eternal flight that way. Nobody. Then Sarah's did something unexpected. She laughed. It sounded like music played on instruments made of starlight. "You have fire, little human, I like that." She straightened to her full height. "We owe you explanation. The child you call Ash is named Silverwind in our language. She was part of our migration fleet when an accident destroyed her nursery pod. We searched for 6 months. We found only debris. We mourned her as lost." "But she wasn't lost," David said. "She crashed on that moon. The crystals must have protected her somehow." "Yes, and you found her at the moment between life and death. You gave her care when you owed her nothing. You asked for no reward. You simply acted with kindness." Sarah's looked back at Ash, who was still wrapped in the wings of the other dragons. "This is rare. In our long existence, we have met thousands of species. Most would have used Silverwind as leverage, or sold her to the highest bidder, or dissected her to steal our secrets." The third dragon, who had remained silent, finally spoke. His voice was deeper, harder. "We learned long ago not to trust other species, Keeper. One act of kindness does not erase millennia of betrayal. We should take the child and leave." "Guardian Rel speaks from old wounds," Sarah said to David. "Forgive him. Our people were once part of a great alliance. 7 species working together to bring order to the galaxy. We trusted them as brothers. They betrayed us, attempted to destroy us completely. We barely survived." David felt the weight of that history. "I'm sorry that happened to you, but I'm not them. Humanity isn't them. We're young and stupid and we make mistakes, but we're also capable of learning, of growing, of being better." "Pretty words," Rel said. "Every species speaks pretty words before showing their true nature." Ash pulled away from the other dragons. She walked back to David on four legs, still too young to master bipedal movement for long. She pressed against his side and looked up at Sarah's. Then she did something that shocked everyone. She spoke. The words came out halting and strange, formed by a mouth not designed for human speech. But they were clear enough. David is, Father, keep safe, love. Sarah's eyes widened. The other dragons made sounds of complete disbelief. Even the humans in the bay gasped. That is impossible, Rel breathed. Hatchlings do not speak until they have bonded for life, until they have chosen their family beyond all doubt. She is too young. She cannot have bonded so deeply already. But Ash just pressed closer to David, wrapping her tail around his leg. Sarah's knelt before David again. Everything has changed, human. When a child of the eternal flight bonds for life, it cannot be undone. Silverwind has chosen you as her father. This has never happened across species before. This is unprecedented. This is, she paused, struggling for words. This is a gift from the universe itself, or a test, perhaps both. David looked down at Ash. What does this mean? It means, Sarah said slowly, that we must reconsider everything we believe about your kind. The sanctuary of skis defied understanding. David floated through corridors that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions, walls made of living crystal that hummed with inner light. Gravity shifted depending on where he walked, always pulling him in the right direction. The air tasted like ozone and ancient forests. Ash walked beside him on all fours, her scales glowing brighter than David had ever seen. She was home among her people, but she refused to leave his side. Every few steps she would look up at him as if checking that he was still there. Sarah's guided them through the ship toward what she called the council chamber. The Council of Wings rarely meets in person, she explained. But your actions have forced an exception. 7 keepers govern the eternal flight. Each represents a different aspect of our civilization. You will speak before them all. What am I supposed to say? David asked. His voice echoed strangely in the corridor. The truth, it is all any of us can offer. The council chamber was a sphere of clear crystal suspended in space. Stars surrounded them on all sides, so close David felt he could reach out and touch them. 7 dragons waited inside, each one ancient beyond David's ability to comprehend. Their scales carried the weight of time itself. The eldest dragon sat in the center. Her scales were pure white shot through with veins of silver. Her eyes held the light of dead stars. When she spoke, the universe seemed to listen. I am High Keeper Marin. I have lived for 10,000 of your years. I have watched civilizations rise from nothing and collapse into dust. I have seen wonders and horrors beyond counting. And now I see something new. A human who saved a dragon child expecting nothing in return. David tried to speak, but his throat closed. The pressure of that ancient gaze was too much. Marin tilted her head. Do not fear, small one. We mean you no harm, but we must understand. Sarah's has told us your story. We have reviewed all data. We find ourselves confused by your motivations. Why did you save Silverwind? The question again. David took a breath and forced himself to meet Marin's eyes. Because she needed help, that's all. I saw a living creature in pain and I had the ability to help her, so I did. But you gained nothing from this action, another keeper said. His scales were dark blue like deep ocean water. You spent resources. You took risks bringing her to your station. You faced opposition from your own people, all of this for no reward. This behavior contradicts what we know of young species. They are driven by self-interest, by survival, by acquisition of power. Maybe we are, David admitted. But we're also driven by other things. Compassion, empathy, the desire to protect those who can't protect themselves. Yeah, humans can be selfish and cruel, but we can also be kind. Both things are true. A third keeper spoke, her scales rippling green and gold. You speak of compassion as if it is unique to your kind. Many species show compassion toward their own, toward their family groups, toward those who benefit them, but compassion toward a complete stranger, toward an alien creature who could offer you nothing. This is rare. This is what caught our attention. Marin gestured with one wing. Let us show you why we are skeptical human. Let us show you our history. The crystal floor became transparent. Images appeared below, projected directly into David's mind. He saw the eternal flight in their glory thousands of years ago, saw them meet other species and welcome them as friends, saw alliances form and civilizations grow together. Then he saw the betrayal. Species they had trusted turned on them, attempted to steal dragon technology and dragon eggs, tried to enslave dragon children, hunted the eternal flight across the galaxy with weapons designed to kill them specifically. The genocide attempt failed, but barely. Thousands of dragons died. Entire worlds burned. The images faded. David found tears running down his face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that happened to you. We do not want your sorrow, Marin said. We want your honesty. After experiencing such betrayal, we withdrew from the galaxy. We swore never to trust other species again. We maintained our duty as guardians of life, but always from distance, always hidden. For 3,000 years we have avoided contact. Until I found Ash, David said quietly. Until you found Silverwind, yes. And now we face a choice. Guardian Rel believes we should take the child and disappear again. Continue our isolation. Forget about your kind. David's heart clenched. You can't take her from me. She's bonded. You said it yourself. We can break the bond, another keeper said. It would damage her psychologically, but she would survive, and you would forget she ever existed. Ash made a sound of pure distress. She pressed against David's legs, trembling. David knelt and wrapped his arms around her neck. Please don't do this, please. Marin raised one claw for silence. Peace, small one. We have not decided anything yet. That is why we brought you here, to test your species, to see if humanity deserves a second chance at contact with the eternal flight. A test, David looked up. What kind of test? You will return to your people with Silverwind and Keeper Sarahs as observers. You will have 1 year. During this time, we will see how humanity responds to our presence. Can your people accept help without trying to steal or control? Can they work alongside us as equals? Can they demonstrate the same compassion you showed, but as an entire species? The weight of those words crushed down on David. You're asking me to speak for all humanity. I'm just a freight pilot, nobody important. You are the most important human alive, Marin said, because you saved a child without hesitation, without calculation. That single act gave us hope that perhaps not all young species follow the same path. Perhaps some can evolve faster, can learn from the mistakes of others, can become something worthy of the stars. Another keeper spoke, scales like burnished copper. The test will have 3 phases. First, we offer medical technology. Can humans accept the gift without weaponizing it? Second, we offer knowledge. Can humans use it to grow instead of destroy? Third, we observe your social structures. Can humans overcome their divisions to work toward common good? And if we fail, David asked, then we leave and never return. The eternal flight will fade into myth, and humanity will face the galaxy alone. Marin leaned forward. But if you succeed, David read, we will establish formal alliance. We will share our knowledge fully. We will guide your species toward maturity. We will make humanity our partners in protecting all life in this galaxy. This is the greatest gift we can offer, and the greatest responsibility. David looked at Ash. She stared back with those golden eyes full of trust and love. He thought about humanity, about their capacity for both good and evil, about people like Yuki who pursued knowledge with pure hearts, about people like Reggie who tried to protect others despite their fear, about the children who pressed against his window just to see something wonderful. We'll fail sometimes, David said. We'll make mistakes. Some humans will try to exploit this. Some will react with fear and violence. We're not perfect. We do not ask for perfection, Marin replied. We ask for honest effort, for growth, for the willingness to be better than you were. Can humanity do this? David stood. I don't know, but I'm going to give everything I have to make sure we try. Marin's eyes seemed to glow brighter. Then the test begins now. Return to your station, David Reed. Show us what humanity can become. The news of the dragon contact spread through human space like wildfire. Within hours of David's return, every news feed across every colony carried the story. A freight pilot had saved an alien child. The aliens were powerful beyond measure. The aliens were testing humanity. The future of the entire species hung in the balance. David became the most famous person alive overnight. He hated every second of it. Interview requests flooded his terminal. Government officials wanted meetings. Scientists demanded access to Ash. Corporate representatives offered money for exclusive rights to his story. Military advisors pressed him for tactical information about dragon ships. Everyone wanted something from him. He ignored them all and focused on what mattered. Sarah's had delivered the first test, a medical device no larger than David's hand, made of the same living crystal as the dragon ships. According to Sarah's, it could cure most known diseases and repair damaged tissue at the cellular level. One device, as a demonstration of good faith. Share it freely, Sarah's had said. Let your scientists study it. Let your doctors use it. We will watch how humanity responds. David gave the device to Yuki. Don't let anyone lock this away in some corporate vault. Make sure it actually helps people. Yuki held the crystal like it might explode. Do you understand what this is worth? Every corporation in human space will try to steal this. Every government will claim jurisdiction. This is going to cause a war. Then we need to move fast. They released all technical specifications publicly within 24 hours. Complete scans, operating principles, manufacturing requirements. Everything available to anyone with a network connection. The reaction was immediate and divided. Medical facilities across dozens of worlds began replicating the technology. Hospitals that had struggled to treat injuries that would have been fatal last week were now healing them in hours. Children dying of genetic diseases were cured in days. The device worked exactly as promised, better even. Lives were saved by the thousands. But not everyone celebrated. 3 major corporations filed lawsuits claiming theft of intellectual property. 2 governments declared the technology a military secret and tried to seize all copies. An extremist group called the Human Preservation Front declared dragons a threat and bombed a research facility studying the healing device. 5 people died. David watched the news coverage with growing despair. Ash sat beside him, now large enough that her head reached his shoulder. She watched the screens with intelligent eyes, learning about the species her adopted father belonged to. We're failing already, David said. We can't even accept a gift without fighting over it. Sarah stood on David's other side, her massive form folded carefully to fit in his quarters. Not failing yet. Growing pains. Every species struggles with sudden change. The question is whether the better impulses win over the worse ones. Over the next weeks, a pattern emerged. Grassroots movements formed around the world. Ordinary people who organized to protect dragon observers. Communities that pooled resources to build free clinics using the healing technology. Teachers who educated students about the importance of this moment in human history. A woman named Ruth Chen started something called the Guardians. She was a nurse who had used the dragon healing device to save her daughter's life. Her movement spread faster than any government could track. Millions of people pledging to prove humanity worthy of dragon trust. But for every guardian, there was someone who saw opportunity instead of responsibility. Black markets formed selling fake dragon technology. Scam artists claimed to have insider knowledge. Politicians used dragon fear to win elections. The Human Preservation Front grew bolder. They published manifestos declaring dragons were demons come to corrupt humanity. They attacked anyone who spoke in favor of the alliance. They promised violence until the dragons left forever. 6 months into the test, everything fell apart in a single day. A terrorist cell infiltrated Waypoint 7. They bypassed security using insider codes from a sympathetic guard. Their target was clear: kill the dragon child. Send a message that humanity would not be controlled. David was in the market section with Ash when the first bomb went off. The explosion ripped through a shopping area, killing 3 people instantly. Screams filled the air. People ran in every direction. "Get to the ship," David yelled at Ash. She was massive now, nearly the size of a small car. She could fly short distances and breathe small jets of superheated plasma. But Ash did not run. She saw the wounded, saw people bleeding and dying. She moved toward them instead, her scales glowing with power. The second bomb exploded in front of them. David felt shrapnel tear into his leg. He went down hard. Through the pain and smoke, he saw figures in combat armor moving toward Ash. They carried weapons designed to punch through Starship hull. "No," David tried to crawl toward her. Blood poured from his leg. Ash roared. The sound shook the station's superstructure. She placed herself between David and the terrorists. Her wings spread wide, blocking their line of fire. Plasma gathered in her throat. The terrorists opened fire. Rounds designed to kill dragons tore into Ash's wings and flanks. She screamed but did not move. Would not move. She would die before letting them reach David. Then the station residents intervened. Yuki came first, throwing herself in front of a terrorist with nothing but a medical bag for protection. Reggie was right behind her with a maintenance crew armed with welding torches and plasma cutters. More people poured in. Not soldiers or security, just ordinary people who had decided enough was enough. The fight was brutal and short. 3 terrorists died, 2 were captured, but the cost was heavy. 4 station residents killed. Ash wounded in a dozen places, David bleeding out on the floor. Ash ignored her own injuries. She stumbled to the wounded, her scales glowing brighter than ever. The same healing energy the dragons had shared in that crystal device now poured from her directly. She touched each injured person, pouring her life force into them. 3 people who should have died were pulled back from the edge. David felt warmth spread through his leg as Ash pressed her head against his wound. The pain faded. The bleeding stopped. But the effort cost her. Ash collapsed beside David, breathing in ragged gasps. Her scales dimmed to almost gray. She had given too much. Sarah's arrived with dragon medics. They stabilized Ash and transferred her to their ship. David refused to leave her side despite his injuries. As they worked, Sarah's looked at David with something like grief. "I must report to the council. The attack will weigh heavily. Your people tried to kill a child, killed their own to attempt it. This may be the end of the test." David grabbed her wing. "But look what else happened. Look at the people who defended her, who died to protect her. They weren't soldiers. They were shopkeepers and teachers and nurses, ordinary people who chose compassion over fear." "Will that be enough?" Sarah's asked. David had no answer. The response came from everywhere at once. Not from governments or corporations, but from people. Millions of ordinary humans across dozens of worlds who heard about the attack and decided they would not accept it. Within hours, memorials appeared on every colony, candles and flowers and messages of solidarity. Children drew pictures of Ash and sent them by the thousands. The images showed a silver dragon protecting people, being kind, being brave. The drawings covered entire walls on Waypoint 7. The Guardians multiplied overnight. What had been millions became hundreds of millions. They organized protective rings around every dragon observer, not with weapons, but with their bodies and their commitment. They declared that anyone who wanted to harm a dragon would have to go through them first. Artists created works celebrating the alliance. Musicians composed songs about the healing that dragons brought. Writers published stories imagining the future humanity and dragons could build together. The cultural explosion was spontaneous and beautiful and completely uncoordinated. Scientists formed coalitions to share dragon knowledge freely. They published research in open forums where anyone could access it. They explicitly rejected corporate ownership and military classification. Knowledge should be free, they argued. Knowledge should serve everyone. Even some of the Human Preservation Front members defected. They released public statements admitting their fear had made them cruel. They apologized to the dragons and to their fellow humans. Not all of them changed, but enough did to matter. David watched it all from Ash's medical chamber aboard the sanctuary of skis. She was recovering slowly, her scales regaining their color. The dragon medics said she would make a full recovery, but she had come terrifyingly close to death. "You gave too much," David told her, holding her claw gently. "You almost died saving people who were trying to kill you." Ash's voice was stronger now, her grasp of human language improving daily. "They were not trying to kill me. A few were. Most were just afraid. Fear makes people do terrible things, but you taught me that kindness is stronger than fear. I had to show them." Sarah's entered the chamber. Her expression was unreadable. "The council has made their decision. All 7 keepers are arriving to deliver it in person. This has not happened in over 1,000 years." David's heart sank. "They're going to end the test. They're going to leave." "I do not know. Even I cannot predict the council when they act with such unity." 3 days later, the 7 council ships arrived at Waypoint 7. Every human in the system held their breath. The dragons had seen humanity at its worst, the terrorism, the greed, the division. Surely they would decide humans were not worth the risk. The council assembled in the sanctuary's main chamber. This time, they invited not just David, but representatives from across human space. Scientists, artists, teachers, doctors, and ordinary citizens who had joined the Guardians. Even 2 former members of the Human Preservation Front who had changed their minds. High Keeper Marin spoke for them all. Her ancient voice carried the weight of 10,000 years, but also something new, something that might have been hope. "We have watched humanity for 1 year. We have seen your best and your worst. We have seen violence and compassion, greed and generosity, fear and courage. We have seen all of this, and we have debated long about what it means." The chamber was absolutely silent. Every human present barely breathed. Marin continued, "Humanity failed parts of our test. You weaponized knowledge meant for healing. You allowed fear to drive some to violence. You remain divided among yourselves. These failures are serious. They cannot be ignored." David felt hope dying in his chest. "But," Marin said, and that single word changed everything, "you also succeeded in ways we did not anticipate. You succeeded in ways we did not think possible for such a young species, and you have taught us something we had forgotten." Another keeper spoke, the one with copper scales. "We judged you against our current selves, against who we are after millions of years of evolution and growth. This was unfair. We forgot who we were at your age." The blue-scaled keeper joined in. "We were like you once, violent, divided, driven by fear and greed. It took us 5,000 years to overcome our worst impulses. It took near extinction to teach us wisdom. We expected you to show in 1 year what took us millennia to learn." Marin raised her wings. "But you surprised us. Yes, some humans chose violence, but millions more chose protection. Yes, some hoarded knowledge, but more shared it freely. Yes, some gave in to fear, but countless others showed courage we have rarely witnessed." She looked directly at Ash. "And when our child was wounded protecting humans who had tried to kill her, she did not retreat. She did not give up on your species. She healed them. Because you, David Reed, taught her that compassion is not weakness, that kindness is not foolishness, that every life has value. Tears ran down David's face. Around the chamber, other humans wept openly. We see now that we were wrong to demand perfection, Marin said. Growth is messy. Evolution is painful. But the capacity to grow is what matters. The willingness to be better than you were. In 1 year, humanity has shown more growth than some species show in centuries. The Green Gold Keeper stepped forward. Therefore, the Council of Wings has decided unanimously. We accept humanity as partners in the eternal flight, not as servants or students, but as equals who walk a different path toward the same destination. The chamber erupted. Humans cheered and cried and embraced each other. Even the dragons seemed moved, their scales shimmering with colors of joy. Marin raised a claw for quiet. This alliance comes with responsibility. We will share knowledge, but you must use it wisely. We will teach, but you must learn. We will protect, but you must also protect others. Together, we will serve as guardians of life in this galaxy. Together, we will face whatever challenges come. Together, we will prove that different species can become one family. Ash rose from her medical bed. She was still weak, but she walked to David and pressed her head against his chest. We did it, Father. We showed them. David wrapped his arms around her neck. No, you did it. You showed everyone what was possible. Sarah's approached with an expression David had never seen before, pride mixed with something like reverence. The Council has offered you a choice, David Reed. You may remain human, living your natural lifespan, or you may accept adoption into the eternal flight. We can extend your life to match Silverwind's. You would live for thousands of years. You would become one of us. The offer stunned everyone. Dragons did not make such offers, ever. David looked at Ash, at Sarah's, at the gathered council members, at the human representatives watching with held breath, and he smiled. I accept, but with one condition. I stay here, on Waypoint 7. Let this station become the first true embassy between our species. Let me help bridge our peoples. I don't want to leave humanity behind. I want to help both our species grow together. Marin nodded slowly. Wise beyond your years. Yes, David Reed. Let Waypoint 7 become the foundation of our shared future. 5 years passed. Waypoint 7 transformed into the galaxy's greatest symbol of cooperation. Human and dragon children learned together in shared schools. Scientists collaborated on projects that benefited both species. Artists created fusion works that blended their cultures into something new and beautiful. David stood at the observation deck watching ships arrive. Hundreds of vessels, both human and dragon, gathering for a joint exploration mission. They would journey to uncharted regions of space together, as partners, as friends, as family. Ash landed beside him, now fully grown and magnificent, 30 feet of muscle and grace and power. But when she looked at David, she was still the small, wounded creature he had found under those crystals, still his daughter, still the one who had changed everything. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For teaching me that one act of kindness can change the universe, for showing me that compassion is the greatest strength, for proving that love crosses all boundaries, even between stars. David smiled and rested his hand on her scales. Below them, the fleet began to launch. Human and dragon ships flying together into the unknown. Two species who had found each other across the vastness of space, who had learned that the greatest discoveries were not new worlds or technologies, but the connections formed between different hearts. The future stretched ahead, full of challenges and wonders, but they would face it together, united not by treaties or contracts, but by the simple truth that had started it all. Sometimes saving one life saves everyone.